You're standing in a bustling diner, the kind where the pancakes are piled high and the coffee never runs out. It's just another day in this little corner of America, a place where regular folks come to grab breakfast before starting their routines. But today is different. Today, something extraordinary happens that no one could have predicted. The door swings open, and in walks a young man dressed casually, but with an air of confidence about him. He doesn't look like he belongs here. Not really. His presence alone draws quiet attention from everyone in the room. Some recognize him instantly. Others sense there's something special about him without knowing why. This is Barron Trump. Yes, that Barron Trump, the son of one of the most famous families in the world. But today, he's just a kid trying to enjoy a simple meal at a small-town diner. Or so it seems. As he takes his seat by the window, the waitress approaches with her usual smile. She's been working here for years, serving plates of eggs and pouring endless cups of coffee. Nothing phases her, until now, because as she hands Barron his check near the end of his meal, something unexpected happens. Something so heartfelt it will stay with her, and everyone who hears this story for a lifetime. Barron Trump isn't your typical teenager. Sure, he goes to school, hangs out with friends, and probably spends too much time on his phone like most kids his age. But unlike most teens, Barron carries a certain weight with him wherever he goes. It's not something you can see right away. It's more of a feeling and awareness that comes from being part of one of the most scrutinized families in history. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve, though. In fact, if you met him outside the glare of cameras and headlines, you'd think he was just another kid trying to figure things out. That's what makes this story so remarkable, because when Barron walked into that diner that morning, he wasn't there as the son of a president or a billionaire. He was just a boy looking for a quiet moment away from the chaos. The waitress didn't know any of this at first. All she saw was a polite young man ordering pancakes and orange juice. She brought him his food with her usual efficiency, chatting briefly about the weather and how busy the diner had been lately. There was nothing unusual about their interaction, at least, not until the end of the meal. When Barron handed back his check, folded neatly inside was a note written in blue ink. A simple gesture, really, but the words within would change everything, for her, for him, and for anyone who hears this story. The diner sits on the edge of a quiet town, one of those places where everyone knows each other's names, and the local news is still printed on paper. It's a cozy little spot with vinyl booths, checkered tablecloths, and a jukebox in the corner that hasn't played a new song since the '80s. Outside, the streets are lined with mom-and-pop shops, and the air smells faintly of fresh bread from the bakery down the block. Inside, the atmosphere hums with life. The clatter of plates, the hiss of the coffee machine, and the cheerful chatter of customers fill the space. This isn't just a diner, it's a community hub, a place where people gather to share stories, laugh, and sometimes even cry over a cup of coffee. The waitress who served Barron has worked here for over 10 years. Her name is Sarah, and she's seen it all. She's comforted customers during tough times, celebrated their victories, and listened to countless tales of joy and heartbreak. To her, this diner isn't just a job, it's home. And every day she walks through those swinging kitchen doors ready to face whatever comes her way. But today feels different. Maybe it's the way the sunlight streams through the windows, casting golden patterns across the floor. Or maybe it's the presence of Barron Trump, sitting quietly by the window, sipping his orange juice while watching the world go by. Whatever it is, Sarah can feel it, a sense that something special is about to happen. As she moves between tables, refilling cups and clearing dishes, she finds herself glancing at him more often than usual. There's something intriguing about him, something that makes her wonder what brought him to this small-town diner instead of some fancy restaurant in the city. But she doesn't ask. Instead, she focuses on doing her job, keeping everything running smoothly, just like always. When Barron finally signals for the check, Sarah approaches with her usual smile. She sets it down on the table, along with a fresh napkin and a refill of his drink. "Take your time," she says warmly. "We're not going anywhere." He thanks her politely, then takes a moment to glance over the bill. When he stands up to leave, he slides a folded piece of paper toward her. At first, she thinks it's just a tip, maybe a generous one, considering who he is. But when she unfolds it, she realizes it's so much more. At first, Sarah doesn't think much of the folded paper. Tips like this happen occasionally. Some customers like to leave little notes or jokes along with their money. But as she unfolds it, her eyes widen in surprise. It's not a tip at all. Instead, it's a short note written in neat handwriting, the kind that looks practiced but sincere. Thank you for your kindness and hard work. I see how much you care about the people here, and it means a lot. Underneath the message is a modest cash tip, enough to make her smile but not extravagant enough to feel out of place. What catches her off guard isn't the amount, it's the thoughtfulness behind the words. In her years working at the diner, she's received plenty of compliments and kind gestures, but none quite like this. For a moment, Sarah feels overwhelmed. She wasn't expecting gratitude from someone like Barron Trump, let alone such heartfelt acknowledgement. Her initial reaction is to brush it off, to tell herself it's no big deal. After all, she's just doing her job. But deep down, she knows it's more than that. This note carries weight, because it comes from someone who could easily have ignored her entirely. As Barron gathers his things and heads toward the door, Sarah hesitates. Should she say something, thank him, or should she let him walk away without making a scene? The dilemma gnaws at her, creating an uncomfortable tension. She watches as he pulls open the diner door, the bell above it jingling softly. Before she can decide what to do, another customer calls out for her attention. A family sitting near the counter needs help splitting a bill, and one of the kids has spilled juice on the floor. Sarah rushes over to assist, her mind still lingering on the note in her hand. By the time she turns back toward the door, Barron is already gone, leaving behind only the faint echo of the bell, and the warmth of his unexpected gesture. Now, Sarah is left wondering, was that really just a random act of kindness, or was there something deeper behind it? And why does it feel like this small moment might be the start of something bigger? Sarah spends the rest of her shift replaying the encounter in her mind. At first, she tries to shake it off, telling herself it was just a nice gesture from a polite young man. But the more she thinks about it, the harder it becomes to ignore the weight of those words. I see how much you care about the people here. It's not every day someone notices the effort you put into your work, especially when that work involves long hours, tired feet, and endless cups of coffee. For Sarah, the diner isn't just a job, it's her life. She pours her heart into making sure every customer feels welcome, whether they're regulars or strangers passing through town. And yet, most days, no one ever stops to acknowledge it. That's why Barron's note means so much to her. It's not just about the kind words themselves, it's about being seen, seen for who she truly is, not just a waitress, but a person with hopes, dreams, and struggles. In that moment, Sarah realizes something profound. Even the smallest acts of kindness can leave a lasting impact. By the time her shift ends, the note is tucked safely in her pocket, its edges already starting to soften from being handled so often. As she walks home under the fading sunlight, Sarah reflects on the day's events. She thinks about Barron, wondering what brought him to this small-town diner in the first place. Was he just looking for a quiet meal away from the spotlight, or did he come here for a reason, knowing full well the effect his actions might have? And then, as if out of nowhere, tears begin to blur her vision. Not because she's sad, but because she's overwhelmed by the sheer humanity of it all. In a world filled with noise and distractions, it's rare to find moments like these, moments where someone takes the time to truly see another person. For Sarah, Barron's note isn't just a piece of paper. It's a reminder that even in the simplest interactions, there's room for connection, compassion, and understanding. And as she climbs the steps to her apartment, clutching the note tightly in her hand, she knows she'll never forget this day, or the boy who made it unforgettable. The next morning, Sarah arrives at the diner earlier than usual. She can't stop thinking about Barron and his note, and she wants to share the story with someone who might understand. Her best friend and co-worker, Mia, is already there, wiping down tables and humming softly to herself. "Hey Mia," Sarah says as she hangs up her apron. "Can I tell you something? Mia looks up, curiosity sparking in her eyes. Of course, what's going on? Sarah hesitates for a moment, unsure of how to start. Finally, she pulls the crumpled note from her pocket and hands it over. This happened yesterday, she explains. I didn't think much of it at first, but well, just read it. Mia unfolds the paper carefully, her expression shifting from confusion to surprise as she reads the words. When she finishes, she looks at Sarah with a mix of admiration and disbelief. Wow, Mia breathes. That's amazing. Did he say anything else? Was he nice? Sarah nods, remembering the brief interaction. Yeah, he was really polite, just sat there quietly, eating pancakes like any other customer. But when he left, she trails off, glancing toward the door where Barron had disappeared the day before. It felt different, like he actually cared. Mia leans against the counter, crossing her arms, thoughtfully. Do you think he knew who you were? Like, did he recognize you or something? Sarah shakes her head. No, I don't think so. I mean, why would he? We've never met before. It's not like I'm famous or anything. Mia smiles gently. Maybe that's the point. Maybe he didn't need to know you personally, to see what you do here every day. Some people have that kind of awareness, They notice things others miss. Sarah considers this, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I guess you're right. Still, it's not every day you get a thank you note from someone like him. Just then, another coworker walks in, interrupting their conversation. Morning, ladies, he calls out cheerfully. What's got you two looking so deep in thought? It's nothing, Mia says quickly, tucking the note back into Sarah's hand. Just girl talk. As the diner begins to fill with customers, Sarah finds herself smiling more than usual. Every time she catches someone's eye, whether it's a regular or a new face, she feels a renewed sense of purpose. And whenever her thoughts drift back to Barron, she remembers the power of small gestures, the way they can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we never expect. Later that week, as Sarah is closing up the diner after a long shift, her phone buzzes with an unfamiliar number. Curious, she answers it. Hello, she says cautiously. Hi, is this Sarah? A polite voice replies. It's a woman, speaking clearly, but with a hint of nervousness. Yes, this is Sarah. Who am I speaking with? Oh, good. My name is Claire, and I work for, well, let's just say I'm helping someone who wanted to follow up on something. Sarah frowns, confusion creeping in. Follow up? What do you mean? There's a brief pause on the other end. Do you remember serving a young man last week? He left you a note. The mention of the note sends a jolt through Sarah. Her heart skips a beat. Yes, I remember. Is everything okay? Claire lets out a soft laugh. Everything's fine, don't worry. The thing is, the person who wrote that note, Barron Trump, he mentioned you to someone close to him. They were really impressed by what you do here at the diner. Sarah freezes, her grip tightening on the phone. Wait, Barron talked about me. He did, Claire confirms. And now, there's someone who'd like to meet you. Someone who thinks your story deserves to be shared. For a moment, Sarah can't process what she's hearing. Meet someone, share her story. This feels like it's spiraling into territory she never imagined possible. Before she can respond, Claire continues. There's going to be a small gathering next weekend, a private event. We'd love for you to attend. Of course, if you're not comfortable, we completely understand, but Sarah cuts her off. No, I'll go. I mean, why not? It's not every day you get invited to something like this. Claire laughs again, this time with relief. Great, details will be sent to you shortly. Thank you so much, Sarah, and please know how much your kindness meant to Barron, and to us. After hanging up, Sarah stands still for several minutes, staring at the empty diner around her. A private event, meeting people connected to Barron Trump. She shakes her head, trying to make sense of it all. This was supposed to be just a simple thank you note. How did it turn into something so much bigger? The days leading up to the event are a whirlwind for Sarah. She spends hours researching who might be attending, wondering if she'll recognize any faces from the news or social media. Her friends and family bombard her with questions, their excitement growing as the date approaches. But beneath the surface, Sarah feels a mix of nerves and uncertainty. What if she doesn't fit in? What if she says the wrong thing? And most importantly, what if this whole thing turns out to be some kind of misunderstanding? On the day of the gathering, Sarah arrives at the venue, a sleek, modern building tucked away in the heart of the city. As she steps inside, her breath catches. The room is filled with people dressed in elegant attire, mingling and chatting animatedly. For a moment, she considers turning around and leaving, but then she spots Mia waiting near the entrance, giving her an encouraging smile. "You've got this," Mia whispers, squeezing her hand before heading off to grab drinks. As Sarah moves through the crowd, she notices familiar faces, business leaders, artists, philanthropists, all gathered in one place. It's overwhelming, but there's also a strange sense of belonging that surprises her. These aren't just wealthy or powerful individuals, they're people, each with their own stories and struggles. Then, just as she begins to relax, a voice calls out her name. "Sarah." She turns to see Barron Trump walking toward her, looking exactly as he did the day they met, polite, composed, and slightly out of place among the glitz and glamour surrounding him. "Hi," he says, offering a small smile. "I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for inviting me," Sarah replies, her voice steadier than she expected. "This is quite the experience." Barron nods, glancing around the room. "Yeah, I know, sometimes it feels like we're all trying to figure things out together. Anyway, I wanted to thank you again for everything. Your note meant more to me than you probably realize." Before Sarah can respond, a tall woman approaches them, extending her hand. "Barron, good to see you," and "Sarah, thank you for coming." Sarah shakes her hand, realizing almost immediately who she is. This is someone incredibly influential, someone whose name she's heard countless times. Yet despite her status, the woman speaks with genuine warmth and kindness. "I've been hearing so much about you," the woman continues. "Your story reminds us of the importance of empathy and connection, even in unexpected places." As the evening progresses, Sarah finds herself drawn into conversations with people she never imagined meeting. Each interaction leaves her feeling inspired, challenged, and grateful. But the weight of the situation grows heavier with every passing hour. By the time dessert is served, Sarah realizes something important. This isn't just about her anymore. It's about the ripple effect of a single act of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can lead to extraordinary outcomes. And yet, as the night winds down and the guests begin to leave, Sarah can't shake the feeling that there's still more to come. Something bigger, something she hasn't fully grasped yet. As the event draws to a close, Sarah finds herself standing near the exit, reflecting on everything that's happened. She feels different, lighter, somehow, as though the weight of her doubts has been lifted. Just as she's about to step outside, a voice stops her in her tracks. "Sarah." She turns to see Barron approaching once more, his expression serious but kind. "There's one more thing I wanted to say," he begins. "When I wrote that note, I didn't realize how much it would mean to me, to hear back from you, to learn your story. You've reminded me of something important, that kindness isn't just about grand gestures, sometimes it's the little things that matter most." Sarah smiles softly, touched by his words. "And you've reminded me that even in the smallest moments, we can make a difference. Thank you for seeing me, for inviting me here, and for reminding me of my own worth." Barron nods, then hesitates for a moment, before pulling an envelope from his pocket. "This is for you," he says, handing it to her. "It's not much, but I hope it helps." Curious, Sarah opens the envelope to find a check inside, a generous amount meant to ease some of the financial burdens she's carried silently for years. Her breath catches, and tears well up in her eyes. "I couldn't accept this," she protests, looking at him. "You've already done so much." "It's not charity," Barron insists gently, "it's gratitude. For showing me, and everyone here, that kindness matters, no matter where you are, or who you're serving." Before Sarah can respond, the woman who hosted the event approaches them, holding a microphone. "If I may have everyone's attention," she announces. The room falls silent, as all eyes turn toward her. "We're here tonight because of stories like Sarah's, The woman continues, stories that remind us of the power of empathy, compassion, and connection. And while many of us give back in big ways, sometimes the greatest impact comes from the simplest acts. As the crowd applauds, Sarah stands frozen, overwhelmed by the recognition. For the first time in her life, she realizes she's part of something bigger than herself, a movement fueled by kindness, generosity, and the belief that even the smallest actions can change the world. When the applause finally fades, Barron leans in and whispers, "You belong here, Sarah. Don't ever forget that." And as she walks out into the cool night air, clutching the envelope tightly in her hand, Sarah knows her life will never be the same again. Thank you for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this.